Now, I'm going to ask you to forget all the transfer noise surrounding West Ham just for a moment, because what I'm about to talk about today could have a far bigger impact on West Ham United than any player we might bring through the door or sell in this summer window. Reports this morning suggest that West Ham's move for Steve Nickson may have fallen through. And if those reports are accurate, the club have wasted absolutely no time in turning their attention to another man, Nils Koppen. Now, I can already hear you asking, who? Well, I'll be honest, I've never heard of him before until today. And that's exactly why this story is so interesting. Because whilst he may not be a household name, his influence behind the scenes at clubs like PSV Eindhoven and Rangers have helped shape the way they identify talent, rebuilding squads, and planning for the future. So today, we're going to answer the question or the questions that every West Ham fan is asking. Who is he? What exactly has he achieved? Why would West Ham want him? How would he work alongside Nuno? And perhaps most importantly, if he does arrive at the London Stadium, what could this mean for the future of West Ham's recruitment strategy and the players that we might target in the transfer window? Hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this appointment, if it happens, could prove to be one of the most important decisions West Ham make this summer. So grab yourselves a drink, a cold one, if you haven't already got one, settle in, and let's take a closer look at the man who could be reshaping our football club. Now, before you do that, if you're new to the channel, or if you've watched the channel before but yet to subscribe, a QR code has appeared in the top corner there. All you've got to do is click on that. It takes you straight to the subscription page. A subscription is free of charge. If you enjoy the content, become a subscriber of the West Ham Voice. So, let's crack on. According to some reports, the deal for Steve Nickson to West Ham as director of football has fallen through. The rumours suggest that West Ham have wasted no time offering the role to another candidate, Nils Koppen, who's currently head of recruitment at FC Copenhagen. Now, the report goes on to say that Coppen is in a hearing today, on Friday, in the hope that he gets a work permit approved so that he can work in England for West Ham. If that's the case, then this clearly means that West Ham haven't just sort of picked Coppen out of the blue and gone, oh, well, we've lost Nickson, we'll go for it. It looks like West Ham have been working on this, on Coppen's arrival, for quite some time. Now, here's what I hope you need to know about our latest director of football link. 41 years of age, Belgian football executive, built his reputation almost entirely through recruitment and talent identification rather than being a former player himself. And unlike many directors of football who arrive with a huge media profile, Coppen has spent his career quietly building scouting departments at clubs that he's been involved in. His career path has gone from youth coaching to technical director and everything in between. He began coaching in Belgium before becoming academy manager at Club Lommel. From there, he became chief scout at of the youth system at Genk. Now, this is significant. Genk have got one of the best academies around Europe. Over the last 15 years, they produced players such as Kevin De Bruyne, Leandro Trossard, Yuri Tielemans, and Wilfred Ndidi. Now, although Koppen cannot take sole credit for producing these players, working inside that recruitment culture gave him an education in identifying elite young talent. Koppen joined PSV Eindhoven in 2018, initially working as the academy scout, quickly progressing into first-team recruitment and eventually becoming head of scouting. Now, PSV's model has always been pretty straightforward. Buy young, develop players, and then sell them for an enormous profit. Now, player recruitment during that era included talents from Scandinavia, Belgium, South America, and Eastern Europe. And Koppen became one of the architects of PSV's recruitment strategy. Now, probably one of the biggest names under Koppen during that time was Johan Bakayoko. Koppen himself often spoke about Bakayoko as an example during an interview when he was at Rangers, demonstrating PSV's recruitment model. Bakayoko was signed from Club Brugge, their youth development system, for a nominal compensation fee. He eventually was sold by PSV for around 40, 50 million euros. Koppen also helped to oversee academy recruitment during his time at PSV, and they were quite aggressive in signing elite Dutch youngsters. One of those players was Matteo Dams, who uh, became the academy's one of the academy's best prospects before eventually reaching first team football. Now, other notable individuals that are associated with Koppen during his time at PSV included Noni Madueke, bought for €200,000, sold for €35 million. Xavi Simons came on a free, sold for 50 million. Cody Gakpo, academy player, sold for 42 million. Ibrahim Sangare, bought for 9 million, sold for 37 million. Now, it's important to note that Koppen cannot claim sole credit for all these players. So don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting this is all Koppen's doing himself. Many arrived before he became scouting coordinator, and recruitment decisions were shared across PSV's footballing department, but he worked within and later helped lead one of Europe's most successful talent identification systems. In late 2023, Rangers came calling. Koppen arrived at Rangers as Director of Football Recruitment, and the Rangers board tasked him with modernising and changing the club's footballing department and recruitment strategy. His objectives were to lower the average age of the squad, recruit players with resale value, reduce reliance on aging high wage players. I'm smiling, you know why. Introduce a more data led scouting model and build a sustainable transfer strategy rather than focusing on short term fixes. I'm smiling because for a West Ham audience, that all sounds very familiar. It's exactly the type of recruitment model that we wanted to get away from. The summer of 2024 was one of the biggest overhauls in Rangers history. He oversaw Rangers' biggest squad rebuilds, and this is poignant because this is where West Ham, I think, are at in this summer transfer window. Under Koppen's leadership, 15 players left the club and 11 new players arrived. That represents a complete reset of the squad rather than simply adding a few new signings. Now, look, if we're to see a number of players leave West Ham, Koppen will have the same task this coming summer. Or no, we're in this summer. One of the things that has already been the problem at West Ham has been an older squad. Now, a lot of work has started to address this, but one of Koppen's stated aims was to make Rangers younger. He publicly explained that Rangers wanted to bring down the average age, create more valuable assets, and stop relying on older players who are approaching the end of their careers. Now, rather than buying players with little resale value, Rangers targeted younger footballers who could develop. Some of these players, most notably, are Hamza Igamane. He signed from FAR Rabat. He cost around 2 million. Quickly became one of Rangers' brightest attacking prospects and significantly increased his market value. Another player at the time was Jefte, the young Brazilian left back, arrived with strong athletic potential, developed into a first team regular, and later generated a profit on his sale. Now, perhaps the biggest endorsement of Koppen's time at Rangers was his getting promoted. In November 2024, he was promoted from Director of Football Recruitment to Technical Director. And that led to a lot more responsibility, not only for player recruitment, but for the development of the academy, the medical department, performance and football operations, and an analysis as well. That's a massive increase in responsibility and showed the board had confidence in his leadership and long-term vision. Koppen's promotion means that every department worked together under one footballing strategy rather than working independently. Again, something that West Ham fans have been crying out for years. Did everything work? No. And this is where balance is really important. Some players were viewed as excellent business. Others have divided opinion. Supporters at Rangers would question the value or impact of signings such as Nadim Bejrami, Oscar Cortes, who was on loan, whilst others, particularly Hamza Igamane, Jefte, and Connor Barron came through the youth ranks, were generally regarded as smarter pieces of business. Now, no sporting director gets everything right. Even the best recruitment departments have got hits and misses. And this is vital because the failures of past heads of recruitment at West Ham have led to immediate dismissal. With Koppen's background, he may actually be given a chance to succeed over time. Although, if promotion is vital at first time of asking, time may not necessarily be on Koppen's side. But so why did he leave Rangers? Well, it's important to note that some West Ham fans are probably asking, did he leave because of failure? Well, no. In 2025, Rangers underwent a major takeover led by American owners. The new regime appointed Kevin Thelwell as sporting director. They brought in Dan Purdy as technical director, basically replacing Koppen as part of a wider restructure rather than Koppen failing in any way. Koppen stayed briefly to assist with the handover before departing. Now look, how will this recruitment of Nils Koppen benefit West Ham? This is where West Ham fans really should be paying attention here. Koppen isn't known for buying established footballers or established Premier League players. He's known for finding tomorrow's stars. His philosophy is based on an age profile, player athleticism, their character, the data behind them, their resale value. So rather than spending 35 million on a finished player, Koppen, as I've said, will buy at a much cheaper rate for players who are up and coming. For years, West Ham have often appeared reactive in the transfer market, negotiating late for players, competing for established names, sometimes buying players who may have impressed individually, but didn't always fit within a system. Koppen's reputation suggests something completely different. He wants recruitment to follow an identity. He wants every signing to fit the footballing philosophy of the club. And that's a huge, huge shift for West Ham. And as I've said, he'd rather spend 8 million, 10 million, 12 million on someone who might be worth 40 million in a couple of years' time. Does that sound familiar to you? You think about Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth, who have all overtaken West Ham United and overtaken other clubs with much bigger budgets because of their footballing philosophy, of their recruitment philosophy in players. Now, what about working alongside Nuno? Because we know it's really, really important that whatever Koppen does, it's got to fit in with what Nuno needs. Nuno, he likes athletic players, quick transitional players, powerful runners, technically secure footballers, players who are capable of playing in a system that the manager needs. And also, Nuno wants players who can play in multiple positions. Koppen likes recruiting exactly those types of players. Rather than simply buying the biggest name available, he prefers players who's going to suit the coach's needs. And that's another massive difference. The manager and the technical director, or whatever you want to call him, director of football, in tandem. One of the biggest criticisms of previous West Ham windows has been buying good players, as I've said, who don't necessarily fit, or they might fit that particular manager's needs, but not the overall. If that manager leaves, then we'd start changing systems. Koppen is going to bridge that gap, or from what we see from his history, he should be bridging that gap. So if Nuno does leave, then the system doesn't change just because Nuno has left. If appointed, I would expect changes in 4 particular areas. The scouting network, even though we've started to improve on that, but that will change again. I expect greater emphasis on Belgium, Netherlands, Scandinavia, and emerging South American markets. Secondly, far more use of analytics. And that bodes well with what West Ham have been building in the background with the partnership of Google Analytics and the AI company Crayon. I've mentioned these several times in previous shows. Thirdly, a younger squad profile, which could result in some established older players leaving the club either this summer or possibly in the next window in January. And finally, a proper succession plan. Instead of waiting until players decline, identifying replacements years earlier. And in terms of players, Koppen might be able to attract? Would he be able to attract signings for West Ham? Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to suddenly bring 10 players from PSV or Rangers, because football doesn't work that way. But recruitment people like Koppen build relationships. His contacts with agents and clubs are extensive. Don't be surprised if West Ham begin looking more closely at the Belgian Pro League, the Dutch League, the Scandinavian leagues. These are leagues producing exceptional value, exceptional talent. Now, rather than playing Premier League prices, you buy before everyone else notices. That, again, has been Brighton's model for years. You get the players in before they start being worth 20, 30, 40 million pounds. Now, all of this could help with PSR and SCR, squad cost ratio, which is coming in to replace PSR. This actually will help, could be the biggest benefit for West Ham. West Ham need to become better sellers of players. We know how bad we are. Not just better buyers, but better sellers as well. And under previous heads of recruitment and under David Sullivan, West Ham has spent big and lost loads of money in the transfer market. Koppen's recruitment philosophy naturally helps PSR, because if you buy younger, if you buy cheaper, if you develop players and then sell for a higher value, that's exactly how clubs remain competitive without relying solely on owner investment. Now, should West Ham fans be excited? I think cautiously optimistic is probably the right phrase. This isn't the glamorous appointment that everyone is going to crave for. This isn't someone who's going to walk into the London Stadium with a huge fanfare. If West Ham genuinely want the likes of to join the likes of Brighton, Brentford, and Bournemouth, the appointment of someone like Coppen matters enormously. There will be risk, absolutely, because recruitment is never perfect. You know, I've already mentioned that some of the signings whilst at Rangers didn't exactly work well. No director of football has got a 100% success rate. But the real question isn't whether every signing succeeds or not. It's whether enough players succeed to continually improve the squad. My final thoughts. If these reports prove correct, I think this would actually tell us something very important about where West Ham are heading. Steve Nickson would have represented one route for player recruitment, experienced English recruiter, years inside Newcastle United structure. But Nils Koppen represents something very different. It suggests West Ham may finally be embracing a more modern footballing structure, a structure built around planning rather than reacting, around identifying talent rather than chasing headline signings, and around buying tomorrow's stars instead of yesterday's names. Someone whose reputation has been built on systems rather than superstar signings. Someone who's comfortable with analytics, someone focused on identifying talent before anyone else does. And perhaps most importantly, someone who appears to fit the type of football Nuno wants to build at the club. The biggest question now isn't whether Nils Koppen is a good recruiter. I think his CV probably suggests that he is. The question is whether West Ham are genuinely ready to embrace this kind of long-term recruitment strategy that clubs like Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth have used successfully over the years. Because if they are, this appointment could prove to be one of the most significant off-pitch decisions the club has made for years. And under the new regime, under Kretinsky, this sounds exactly the path that we're heading. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do leave your comments. Do hit the like button. Do hit the bell notification. Do become a subscriber. Do also hit the hype button if I haven't already said that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening for my rambling for 20 minutes. Have a good rest of the afternoon.